When our next tank first appeared, men fled from their positions in terror of this awesome new war machine. To our modern eyes, it may not look like much, but nearly 100 years ago, this tank was a ruthless steel monster bent on destruction.
The impact was brilliant, and it exactly underscored what's been true ever since. Tanks are a psychological weapon. Their shock value is enormous. For troops who have not had the experience of standing up to them, it's an overwhelming weapon.
The British World War I tank, first produced in 1917. Top speed 4 miles per hour. Range 22 miles. Daimler 6-cylinder engine gives power-to-weight ratio of 3.3 horsepower per ton. Armor thickness 6 to 12 millimeters. Primary armament 2 6-pounder guns.
The thing you've got to remember about tanks of the First World War is that you've never seen one of these before. You don't know the word tank. They're not big compared to modern tanks, but they're bigger than any machine you've ever seen outside a factory before. And it's shooting at you.
The World War I tank inspired terror among the enemy, but it was also a dangerous place for its crew.
The exhaust from the engine vents into the crew compartment, so you're being asphyxiated by the exhaust from your engine.
These were literally iron boxes, the most rudimentary seats, no suspension. You know, over rough ground, 3 or 4 miles an hour was enough to make you seasick and vomit, and even more so because there was very little vision to the outside.
For the tank crew, this was hell on Caterpillar tracks. Worst of all, these vehicles had very, very thin armor.
If you shoot at that with anything, like a machine gun or a pistol, when it gets to the inside of the armor, spalling will occur, and tiny razor-sharp flakes of metal are going to fly around on the inside of the vehicle.
Slow and vulnerable to small arms fire, these first tanks performed poorly on the battlefield, often getting bogged down in mud or cut off and surrounded.
The early users of tanks didn't realize that tanks had to be used en masse in a great big mailed fist, as opposed to using them in dribs and drabs to support the infantry.
But new tactics were gradually developed, and in November 1917, the tank finally proved its worth.
When the tanks are introduced at Cambrai in 1917, it is the beginning of an evolution which will create armored warfare.
At Cambrai, a force of 300 tanks went into battle in one massive force. The supposedly impregnable German trench system was overwhelmed. In just a few hours, the British tanks had penetrated 5 miles into enemy territory, an advance that would have taken 3 months without armored forces. The age of the tank had arrived. The World War I tank did have thin armor, but it was the only armored vehicle in existence, so scores well in this category, as it does on mobility and firepower. But it was not an easy machine to manufacture, being very much a high-tech product in its day, so scores below average in this category. But its fear factor was massive. Nothing like it had ever been seen before, earning it a respectable 4th place on the list.